where anyone at all from Shirley Temple to Amy Semple is equally understood. Go out and try your luck, you may be Donald Duck. Hooray for Hollywood!
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, you are listening to a Radulich Broadcasting premiere podcast. Damn you, Hollywood! And here's your host, Robert Winfree. Yay!
And if you're not down with that, we got... Oh, no, wrong intro.
Close enough. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Damn You Hollywood. I'm Robert. You heard Mark do my intro, as always. Thank you, Mark.
I'm Venom.
Please don't.
Arrar.
Joining us for this particular episode, wherein we will be discussing maybe the worst vampire movie since Twilight, and I'm not sure which of them is worse. Pat Mullin, you who heard briefly jump into the DX thing. Pat, how the heck are you?
I'm very excited that I get to podcast with my two favorite podcast partners from years ago again. It's just a fun reunion whenever the three of us get together, except when we have to talk about a movie like this.
I'm sure we'll have a good time.
It does harken back to how this all began. Where it all begins again, Pat. The Amazing Spider-Man 2. There we were. I was watching a movie. You were watching a movie. I was like, tastes great. You were like, less filling. And Robert's like, ouch, my head. And there we were. And Damn You Hollywood was born.
I kind of said, let me get in between you two and at least moderate something.
And here you are all these years later, still trapped in the basement.
Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't.
At least you're not naked in the cellar.
Not yet, at least.
I'm not worried about that one.
All right, so Morbius, yeah.
Oh, we had to get there, didn't we?
We did. No protracted intro this time around. This movie destroys all the fun we could have, even with the intro. So before we get into this, Pat, I'm curious. You said you saw Morbius on the schedule, and then it moved, and it moved, and it moved, and it moved, and it moved. And at every juncture, you said...
And yet, I didn't take the hint from God's plan to just hit the eject button.
You were given every possible out. And at every possible turn, you told Mark, yeah, no, still here. Give me this one. Give me Morbius. Dare I ask why?
Oh, man. So while I eat my hat... Listen, I've always been a fan of the Morbius character. I loved the Morbius comic series, The Living Vampire, that was running in the early 90s. I went back and I read up, a lot of his early appearances from The Amazing Spider-Man, and then he didn't have his own book, but he was the particular title feature, or not title feature, but he was the main feature of a series called Adventure into Fear that had run in the 70s, and I read a lot of those books. And in the 90s, Marvel Horror kind of had a secondary rebirth where he was part of the Midnight Sun series. So Morbius was involved in a lot of stuff. He's involved in the Maximum Carnage crossover. He was an omnipresent character. I've always been a fan of vampire lore, and this was a pretty unique kind of cool take on it that originated when they couldn't put vampires into comic books because of the Comics Code of Authority.
We hate you, CCA. Yeah. We really hate you.
And, I look back and learned this is a Sony production, much the way Venom was. And while Venom is certainly not a perfect film, I found Venom a lot more enjoyable than I have a lot of the recent Marvel cinematic offerings. And I had hope that maybe they would get a better pulse on Morbius, the way it kind of seemed like they had a better pulse on the Eddie Brock Venom character in that movie than they would have in the milieu of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So I was hopeful. I had my fingers crossed. There was, not a lot of Kevin Feige and this guy and that guy. There was no Taika Waititi to be found. So I had my hopes up. And boy, oh boy, should I have just taken the hint along the way somewhere, somehow, somewhen.
Yeah. We always look back at those decisions like, I made a left there when I really should have made a right. All right, so the plot synopsis for Morbius, such as it exists, goes as follows. We are introduced to Jared Leto in his I'm not going to make that joke.
No, you stop doing that. You're like,
you don't want what I was about to say.
No, I'm pretty sure I do.
You're such a coy girl about it. You're like, no, I can't. I'm
Okay, fine.
embarrassed."
Jared Leto attempting to upstage Matthew McConaughey when he was riddled with AIDS in Dallas Buyers Club.
Hang on. I don't even get the joke. I haven't seen the movie, so
because of how thin and pale and unhealthy he looked.
Oh, okay, got it. Hair, fine. Moving on.
I'm going back to Mark saying coy girl.
I could have said auditioning to play a Holocaust survivor. Would that make you feel better?
I certainly will.
Please move on.
One of these days you're going to take the hint that when I say you don't want to go down this hole with me.
No, I always want to go down your hole. You just stop putting those thoughts in the world, okay? And then I won't try to go down your hole.
And there are strange holes.
There are.
So he's on an island off the coast of Costa Rica where he is capturing vampire bats for medical purposes because we get a flashback. Never a good sign. To him as a child, he has some unspecified medical condition. It's very, very unspecified. He gets to meet he gets another companion at this medical facility in Greece where he is being treated and raised by Jared Harris. He completely ignores his new friend's name and just dubs him Milo because, well, you'll be dead in a few weeks, so why bother learning your name? They have a couple of very small misadventures, one of which includes young Michael Morbius fixing a very expensive piece of machinery with a spring out of a ballpoint pen.
Because why not?
I once saw Richard Dean Anderson make a rocket launcher out of a muffler, a tail light, some seat cushioning, and kerosene. Don't tell me.
Listen, I think if the 80s taught us anything, you can fix or make anything with just about any object if you're the A-Team or MacGyver.
I'm just saying, you can't replace a fuse with a conductor and expect that to do the same thing.
I'm going to tell you that science doesn't exist in this universe and ask you to continue with your plot synopsis.
You know, that's fair. Jared Harris sends him off to a new facility where he can begin learning and spread his gifts and his wings and go fly. And I will watch your new best friend that you met yesterday. Flash forward, slightly backwards. Michael Morbius declines to accept a Nobel Prize, like you do. He is using, in his desperation to fix whatever his medical condition is, the unknown virus of unspecified origin, we'll just call it that. He is now trying to splice together various bits of other mammalian DNA into human DNA and create some kind of a treatment based on this. He's arrived at bats because apparently some kind of anticoagulant feature is necessary to try and fix whatever's wrong with him. It takes them a few iterations, but they eventually do succeed. So in order to get around all kinds of pesky legal hurdles, he gets his friend Milo, played by Matt Smith, and his Neanderthal forehead. To set them, who is rich, by the way. Don't know if you noticed that or not, but loaded. How and why? We don't know.
He drinks a lot, huh?
I assume.
Pat, do me a favor. Tell everyone in the chat to shut the fuck up.
It's Teasley. just tell Teasley to stop because I got stuff going on, and all I hear is him sending pictures or talking about Steel Panther for God knows what reason.
It's always a good time for Steel Panther.
I mean, that's true, but I also have that chat muted. Meanwhile, I can hear Pat's phone going off. And every time I look at it, I'm like, damn it, it's the damn chat. Go on.
So he gets set up in a cruise ship, in a container ship, off the coast in international waters, right around the same place they had the rematch between Mike Tyson and that horse. Dredrick Tatum and the horse, not Tyson. Guy, screwed up my own reference.
Hey, Mark, did you know Roberto Duran once knocked out a horse?
He did once knock out a horse, Roberto Duran did.
Everybody take a drink. While there, he finalizes his procedure. He gets injected in the spine, which would actually make sense considering what he's trying to do. But lo and behold, there's complications with what he's doing. He turns into a monster, murders a bunch of people on the boat, except the, quasi-romantic interest who was conveniently unconscious. He then...
Like you are when you're a woman in these films.
Sure. He then makes a mayday call, jumps overboard. He is concerned because I killed a bunch of people and this disturbs me. He starts experimenting on himself, trying to figure out what's going on. Turns out he's a vampire. He needs blood. Fortunately, he created fake blood a few years ago. Yay. And it's blue. It's blue.
Yeah, blue raspberry hemoglobin, everybody. Come to a store near you.
Listen,
So
that's how you show periods in commercials. You have to just make the water blue.
I couldn't help but laugh, because we'd had that discussion not that long ago. Like, oh, hey, the blood is blue.
Right.
So every couple of hours...
oxidized, guys. Science.
So every couple of hours, he has to suck down a blue Slurpee to avoid his condition completely reverting to a cripple. A couple of cops show up. One of whom has a personality. The other is Tyrese, who is playing our resident owl. For the record, he's the owl because he's here to growl and scowl and occasionally prowl.
And ask who?
On occasion.
Okay.
One of the only characters in this movie based on a comic book counterpart.
I believe it, because that's the only reason they would have possibly cared enough to dump on him this much.
Yeah.
So Matt Smith shows up.
Yeah, Matt Smith shows up. He's like, hey, you found a cure. And Morbius is like, yes, but it's a curse and a gift. But really, it's a curse. So I can't help you. And he goes, but I paid for all of this. And you're just going to consign me to death. He's like, no, death is better. You can retain your humanity. And he steals the serum and goes off and injects himself anyway, because of course he does. Matt Smith then kills a nurse. Morbius thinks he did it. Oh no. The 5 minutes of quasi-tension that this created. There's a chase scene. There's another chase scene. Morbius gets arrested. Matt Smith comes to see him. Reveals that, no, I did, in fact, I injected myself. I'm the one who killed the nurse. You're still a pure, good, and innocent boy, except for the 8 people you murdered on the ship. But no one cares. They were hired guns. They probably did bad things.
That's an actual line of dialogue in the movie.
He all but said, you killed a bunch of white guys. No one cares. I killed the Latin nurse, so you can be absolved.
I was thinking more about Al Madrigal's line about, we don't really care about the mercenaries that you killed. They probably all had it coming. But that poor nurse.
That too. Morbius sucks down some red blood that was left there by Matt Smith, because this is the world's worst prison. He escapes. He fights Matt Smith. He escapes from Matt Smith because he doesn't want to kill his best friend. He comes up with a medical solution to this. We get pointless Matt Smith dancing. We get pointless Matt Smith in a bar. We get Matt Smith killing Jared Harris to lure Michael away from his girlfriend, who Matt Smith then nearly kills. Morbius tearfully finds her mostly dead body. They kiss. She bites his lip because this is enough. A single drop of this stuff is enough to turn her into a vampire. He then bites the crap out of her, drains her of blood, somewhat obfuscating the entire methodology by which one would turn into a vampire in this particular case. He goes off to fight Matt Smith. They have a terrible CGI smoke-filled battle. Matt Smith mostly wins. Morbius then summons the power of bats. I'm not joking. I'm not joking, people. If you haven't seen the movie, he summons every bat under New York City. Apparently there's a lot of them. He sicks them on Matt Smith in a horrible Kamehameha iteration. Seriously, he's got the hand out, and he brings both hands down to his hip, and and then he uses the distraction of the bats to go stab his friend with this chemical that he's devised that will kill him.
Anticoagulant, as it were.
Indeed. Actually, it's a super coagulant. It kind of... Never mind.
Yeah.
No one cares. Certainly not the writers or the actors or the director.
Or the audience.
He then flies off because he can fly. As his girlfriend wakes up as a vampire, He flies off into the night. We then get the world's worst mid-credit sequence. The absolute worst. And I've seen a lot of these stupid things. Waiting until the actual end of one of the MCU movies so Captain America can kind of troll us was a better use of time than this was. But Michael Keaton shows up because the sky split apart because, hey, we're so desperate to try and piggyback off of this financial success of the MCU that we'll do just about anything. He shows up, he gets news coverage for no good reason. And immediately decides, you know what, I need to reassemble my old armor, and I will reach out to another potential supervillain. And I know this has something to do with Spider-Man because I desperately want to play J. Jonah Jameson, but I am not J.K. Simmons, so I'm stuck doing this. And we should team up and try to do some good in the world because Sony is still, years later, after this whole endeavor failed spectacularly at the end of Amazing Spider-Man 2, desperate to try and get a Sinister Six movie off the ground that no one wants.
I mean,
and that's where we end.
You know what's funny about that? And I'm going to throw it to Pat for his thoughts on the movie. It's not like either one of the Suicide Squad movies that they're so obsessed with did well. Like the first Suicide Squad movie, I mean, may have made money, but it's going to make more money than for the record. It's probably going to make more money than the Batman when it's all said and done. But certainly the one that was on HBO Max last year hasn't made any money at all. We talked about that at length.
Yeah, we talked about that when we reviewed it.
So, so the fact that Sony executives are just like, okay, there's the Avengers, there's Suicide Squad, there's Justice League. What do we got? The Sinister Six. Fine, make that. That doesn't make any sense, though. And oh, by the way, most of the movies on that list that I just rattled through didn't do well. That's fine. Do it anyway. It seems to be Sony's philosophy with all of this.
Nah, it'll be fine.
Nah, it'll be fine. All right, go ahead. Sucks isn't strong or clever enough.
True.
Yeah. What a terrible movie. Good Lord. I'll never complain about a movie generally missing action beats as long as there's advancement to the story.
Mm-hmm.
But the story here is about as hollow as the bones of a bat, to be sure, because they don't try with any effort to really make any of these characters more than two-dimensional. They're all one-note characters, including Morbius. So there's no advancement development that makes you real interested in any of them at any point. Not the least of which is Milo. Real name Lucian, whatever you want to call him. We'll call him Milo for the purposes of this. But it's a recycled story that we've seen done to death through these movies, whether you've seen Thor, Black Panther, Aquaman, etc. It's the same plot in that regard, in which you have this surrogate, brother, cousin, whatever, trying to turn on our titular hero out of jealousy or means or what have you, and it commits some type of patricide in the process. And that's what we get here. Lather, rinse, repeat. It sucks more each time you see it. On top of that, the science, and I use that word loosely, that we see in this film has very little actual application. There's nothing to what they're doing here, with the exception of injecting someone in the spine based on what they needed to do, like Robert pointed out. Furthermore, the plot itself, it's never really clear what the end game is.
Right.
It's not. Is it that he wants to cure himself? Is it that he wants to cure Milo? Forget about anybody who might potentially also have this disease worldwide. It's not like he's trying to cure this when he's getting his Nobel Peace Prize, which was a stupid throwaway scene.
There's I imagine there was a whole sequence filmed because there's more of that. You guys want to get drunk. To anyone out there that drinks, watch the first trailer for Morbius and take a drink every time a scene in the trailer is not in the movie.
Not in the movie.
What's up, Doc?
It's not uncommon for some stuff to get cut, but boy,
it's almost like they shot the trailer and then shot the movie.
I get the feeling this was not only edited heavily, like I wouldn't be shocked if there was a bunch of this stuff that was shot, like they wrapped and then went, oh, Spider-Man ended this way, let's reshoot.
Yeah.
I'm thinking the same way you are, Robert, in that they had plans for this and then saw the ending and then decide, well, we don't have to release this then, and constant pushback due to post edit, pushback due to post edit, pushback
But
due to post edit.
most of the pushback though was because of where we were in the pandemic. It wasn't that.
Yeah,
Hang on. The most of the pushback was because of the pandemic. Like that got pushed back a couple of times. Then it got pushed out of October because of No Time to Die, and it got pushed out of January because of Batman.
Okay, I'm going to say all of those are scapegoats. They
I mean,
just wanted an excuse.
And I'm honestly inclined to agree with that.
Here's what I'll tell you though: that wasn't the only movie to move during those times.
No, but I imagine it was the only one that was as revised during its downtime.
But that's the thing. You guys are misunderstanding me. I'm not arguing that this probably suffered from Notes Apocalypse. I'm not arguing that it didn't suffer from a lot of studio interference and that there was probably a lot of cooks in the kitchen. They were rearranging things based on different feedback they were getting. I want to say that one of the pushbacks and then edits on this thing was due to they did a screening for it and it tested poorly, and so they had to change some stuff. But
Almost
in addition to which, they also kept pushing back the film because of the pandemic, then because of No Time to Die, then because of the Batman. Spider-Man, and then it was like actually, I don't think Batman had anything to do with it. It was Spider-Man. When they saw the success of that, they were like, "There's no point in having another competitive film when Spider-Man's still making money in the month of January, which is when it was."
I'll disagree with that solely because I feel like you could have doubled up because of the known tie-in between the characters, and you could have had people go, "Oh, we'll do Spider-Man this weekend, we'll do Morbius next weekend," and maybe you wouldn't have had such an even split in the box office in terms of that, but you'd have had people constantly rotating into the box office to see your two films. One in the hope that maybe they find a way to tie them together, the way they teased the symbiote being left over in the MCU after the multiversal crap, whatever you want to call it. In that sense. And then sure enough, we get the tease with Michael Keaton as the Vulture.
But I will tell you, like, if you look at just going back to March, you had Scream in January, and then it was about a 4-week block until the next big thing in February, and then you had Batman in March, Morbius in April, Doctor Strange in May, all within a month month to month to month. So there is something to be said for releasing tent poles with enough weeks in between, because the opposite of that is what happened in November, where October and November, where it was literally for an 8-week stretch, every single movie that had been pushed back and nothing had room to breathe. Like, I'm not saying Eternals would have made $1 billion or anything, but part of the reason Eternals,
if you recall,
I do recall, didn't even come close. But part of the reason that Ghostbusters immediately ate into it, then Encanto, I think, was the next one, and then we were into December. So
I think we're overestimating just how different those audiences are, or underestimating just how different the audiences for those films are, though.
So what else didn't you like about the movie, Pat?
The acting, terrible as a whole. Let's call it out for what it is. I get that they're playing one-note characters, but if you're good enough, you can make that performance worthwhile.
Sure.
Jared Leto's Joker was completely underdeveloped in the Suicide Squad movies for having the presence that was there.
But at least he made the most of that character while he was in it. Right.
Total opposite here.
Yeah.
He was flat, uninspired. I almost want to say like it was like he was doing or attempting to do a Brandon Lee type Crow. But aside from mixing in the depressing scenes, like where he's playing his guitar or just perched on the rooftop, he didn't do any of the fun stuff. He didn't do any of the manic stuff. He didn't do any of that. Even when he gets into his bloodthirsty rage, it's not scary. It's not terrifying. It's you're like, really? Like, this is going to come attack me? And there was no sense of fear, impairment, or anything. You have, what's-her-face that played Martine? Oh, good Lord. Adria Arjona, right? Is that her name?
Yeah.
Yes.
Depending,
Adria,
might be. Where's she from, Mark?
She is Puerto Rican.
Yeah, so they would be an age.
Right, Arjona. She was awful. She brought nothing to the table here. to make you interested. Her time as a love interest, if you want to call her that, was so short, and there was no real connection to be made between them. And then, for all as little as that relationship is built, the big climax where he feels that she's dead and you're supposed to feel something, you don't, because it's silly, because it doesn't matter. The Milo character is an also ran. We've seen this done a million times before, significantly better each time we've seen it before. Just an awful, wannabe addition to the Morbius. I don't know if they were trying to make the Morbius character more relatable because now you have a brother in a familial situation, but it was stupid. It didn't work. It's territory that's been covered ad nauseum. And when you do it in such a way that you don't add anything to it, where there's no depth, where maybe there is a tragic component to this, or maybe you make Morbius more villainous than what he initially is, where he's a tortured anti-hero here, make him the bad guy. That's how he started off. Make him the bad guy and make Milo the sympathetic one if you want to really do something different by adding this character in. Instead, you've tried to do the same formula that you've done repeatedly, and it falls flat. Matt Smith, by the way, just terrible. Terrible. Your Cro-Magnon features and your one-note acting skills. Go back to Doctor Who or whatever it is you did before this that I don't care about because you sucked. The dad figure of the two of them, when he died, I was cheering.
Yeah, this movie's like one of its biggest crimes is doing that to poor Jared Harris, who's a very good actor.
Yeah, you completely underrode him for what he's capable of doing. Tyrese is probably the most interesting guy in the movie, to be fair. And that's not saying a lot.
And his partner's the only one with a personality.
Yeah. What was his name? Rodriguez. Sure. Yeah, and then you had Tyrese was playing Stroud, who, again, is the only other character from the comic books besides Morbius and Martine. And they get the cybernetic arm right. This is just a bad movie. It's slow. It meanders. It's very flat. It misses action beats where you really need some kind of pickup in the development of the story. It doesn't understand its own source material. It doesn't understand what type of film it's trying to be, whether it's trying to be a scientific exploratory movie, a horror movie, or a superhero movie. It fails at all three of those spectacularly. It's a movie without clear direction, without clear purpose, which doesn't deliver any strong performances of any kind. It's terrible on every front it could possibly be terrible on.
So New Mutants comes out. What was that? 2020, wow. Right?
Oh, that's a segue. Yeah.
It was 2020. Okay. So I'm on my second treatment of chemo during my reoccurrence of cancer. The reoccurrence actually happens in 2019. I do CAR T. It doesn't work. I almost die, and then I go through chemo again. So what was it? August, September is when New Mutants came out. That. Okay, so I've already had now 2 or 3 treatments. I'm going somewhere with this. I've already had 2 or 3 treatments of chemo.
Good, because Morbius didn't.
This is the second time around. And I have no immune system by this point. I'm pretty shot out from all the chemo, and I'm about to make a decision to not continue with chemo anymore because I feel worse than I did with the actual cancer when I couldn't walk. So watching New Mutants, and I'm riddled with chemo, and all I want is for this fucking movie to end. Okay? I'm just sitting there, and I'm like, I don't even want to podcast anymore. This is the worst thing ever. Oh my God. I'm glad.
And then there's Maud.
I don't care anymore. I don't care if they're gay. And I'm just like, and
here's the demon bear.
I'm squirming in my seat. I'm like, I just want it to end. I think the movie might have been 90 minutes flat. It felt like an eternity. This was worse. And yes. I don't even have any chemo in my system this time. I sat there with my kids. And I asked them what they thought of it, and they were like, "They're like, oh, we loved it. It was great." We were like, "It." There was a couple of times where they were like, "Huh," but even they were like, "Oh, we thought it'd be scarier." The 11 and the 8-year-old thought it would be scarier. Then there's me, who's like, "This is interminable." So let me talk about that first. This thing is so poorly paced, and it's not even like, oh, there's not enough action beats to keep it going. It's every single scene. I mean, it's not it's it's not quite Refn, but it does feel like
it evokes Refn.
It feels like they shot it at normal speed and decided to slow it down somehow. Like I
Thanks,
don't.
Zack Snyder.
At least that has style to it.
Nothing feels like there's a sense of urgency in this movie. It just seems like everything is meandering from set piece to set piece, and even the action sequences are so poorly shot and hard to follow that I'm not interested in seeing what's happening. The central conflict essentially is that Matt Smith's little boy character was bullied. And because he was bullied, presumably not just the one time, but throughout his life, when he has an opportunity to enact revenge for God's cruel joke against him, he uses the vampire powers to now bring about a terrible vengeance upon people. Except that he's not attacking anybody that had anything to do with his bullying or anyone that's doing anything to him. He's a hermit living with this terrible medical condition. All right, do me a favor, guys. Robert, jump in. I got to walk away for a second.
All right, you handle the dog. So let's do a couple of things here, because this movie needs to be put out of its misery.
God, does it.
Let's start with whoever in the CGI department decided that smoke effects are the best thing ever. Just don't.
This made Venom, the initial Venom movies effects look fantastic.
And those looked like crap.
You couldn't tell anything was going on during the symbiote fight.
Oh, like that entire it definitely drew like visual inspiration from some of that, because hey, frantic action and then slow down as the camera keeps panning. No. You don't have either the time, the money, or the talent to create the kind of deep like Rococo-esque screenshots that you need to make that work. And so it feels bad. It feels stupid. It's painful. You interrupt whatever flow your action scene might have for.
And with the color tone and palette of the whole movie, it's not necessarily sepia tones the way Snyder's done things, but it was painted, in a certain way.
Yeah.
With that, those smoke sequences and the slowing to speed up did not help in any way.
I know the real reason for this, but I need to ask this of the audience, including you. Why does Morbius's cloak glow purple at the end? Now again, I know the real answer. The real answer is, without a color distinguisher, no one could follow who was who when he and Matt Smith are rolling around, but you don't actually have a real reason.
No. And that's the thing behind it, is that there was no discernible reason for that other than to differentiate him from Matt Smith, because the forehead wasn't enough of a giveaway at this point in the CGI with the way things were mixed up. And I guess it's a little bit of a wink nod to the comics in the 90s where Morbius did have a purple colored cloak, but it was still just silly. And this stands out for every wrong reason possible. And I like Jared Leto.
He's a good actor. He's just a bad lead.
I don't even necessarily think it's just that he's a bad lead. It's just he had nothing here. There was nothing to work with here.
Like you needed someone. The only person who could have injected personality into this written version of Morbius is someone like Nicolas Cage.
Yeah.
Like, that's the kind of performance you would need to elevate this bland writing.
You need an absolute weirdo who's out there and can just do something off the beaten path, or like where he could have done it. And that's not a knock on Jared Leto. It's more a case of how bad this was written. And again, I use this term a lot, but I'm still using it, how one-dimensional and one-note this character is in this movie.
There's another technical thing that I found hilarious as soon as I noticed it. You know how little blood there is in this movie for a vampire flick? Now, here's what
call it a vampire flick, to be fair.
Fair enough. But here's what kills me about it. If you happen to rewatch the scene on the boat, I don't recommend this, but if you happen to do so, or you find it online to look it up,
where you have a body count of 8 from a vampire.
Not only is there no blood, but there are sequences where you can tell there was supposed to be, and I can tell you how you can tell this thing. They clearly shot scenes and went, okay, and then in post, here will be the big CGI gout of blood coming out of the neck as Morbius's claws slashes across here. The actor goes, and again, the thought is we're not going to rig something up to spout fake blood. We can do this fairly easily with CGI in post-production. No big deal. And to be fair to them, that's certainly a very easy thing to do. And then somewhere along the line, the edict came down, PG-13, and all the things we can't show. And so now you have these sequences where you have the big vampire with the big claws gouging someone's throat out, the actor reacting like his throat's been cut, and even the sound effect of gouting blood still in there on the sound side, and zero visual. And it's hilarious.
Like, if you're going to do that much CGI editing, there's an old horror trick, and you and I have talked about this on previous shows, where you can get it to be the thing you don't see scaring you.
Yeah.
All the reshoots you've done, and we're speculating, but let's be pretty honest. If you had that much trailer footage that wasn't used, pretty clear you shot additional stuff to be put in after the fact and redo this movie in some type of way. You couldn't think about that. Maybe he pulls somebody into the dark and you don't see what actually goes on. You just see a body drop with the head maybe still hidden in the shadows. If you and I can think of this in 5 minutes,
Yeah.
They can't think of this in post in some type of way. This was worse than seeing Henry Cavill's mustache in Justice League.
So much worse. It really, and it's the worst part about it is that it's so painfully obvious. Like, hey, we expected blood to be here, and we expected like there's a real identity crisis, and I don't know if this came about in the writing or the editing. And I'm willing to give that a little bit of a question mark here because for only the following reason. There's a way to tell the story that they're trying to tell and make it, again, you lean into the horror side of things. And I feel like that's kind of what the thought process was for a lot of this movie. Because, again, you get this, it's a low body count sequence, but elements of the stalk through the ship are not the worst thing in the world. Again, it's all cliched, but that's not always the end of the world. If you're establishing that this guy's scary, okay, he kills some guys with guns, we get some blood, we establish that he's, dangerous. And yeah, it's all well-worn territory, but you can do it well enough. And I think there was supposed to be a bit of contrast between what Morbius both did there and then him, desperately trying to keep a hold of himself, and for want of a better expression, let's call it the Anne Rice levels of excess that Matt Smith's character was supposed to go to. And I can see the logic here if we're just kind of brainstorming this. And you can make this work. But there's so much other stuff you have to be able and willing to do, and for whatever reason, they couldn't or they didn't or they were vetoed. And it not only robs the movie of any tension it might have in the general sense that you want to get from a vampire flick, more importantly, it utterly destroys the signposting for this movie. If you're not familiar with the term, when a story whenever you're reading a story, watching it, whatever, the author will put signposts along the way. I know the author knows we need characters to go here. Characters are here, and they think we need to go here. So how do we get them from here to here? Because this is where we need to go. Well, you need to do something to let the audience know, well, we need the characters here. Because if the audience thinks the characters are right, then when they wind up here instead of here, you go, what? And in this instance, that's what we get a lot of. The entire first third of this movie is based around, can Morbius develop a cure? That's your central tension. Like, this is the end-all, be-all of the first third of this movie, is bad medical drama. Like,
I was going to say, it's essentially any medical drama you've seen, Lorenzo's Oil, anything like that. That's Act 1.
Act 2 is, like Bad Law and Order. Like, that's kind of what we get here. And it's not told from that perspective, but it's about the pseudo investigation. It's about Morbius trying to keep his head down, a little bit of conflict between him and Matt Smith. And then our finale is any act 3 of an MCU movie.
Yeah, and even especially the bad ones.
And as an end result, these all feel horribly disjointed. There's no narrative through line, there's no emotional through line, there's nothing connecting the audience along the way. There's nothing telling the audience, hey, by the way, we might be starting at a medical drama, but we establish Matt Smith as maybe a bit more unstable than he is presented as. Maybe he's a bit more violent. Maybe he's keeping Jared Harris under,
Lock and
threat.
key for whatever reason.
Yeah, like I'm threatening him. I've blackmailed him. I've whatever.
Something of substance that we can use in the story to guide us to this point.
Because instead, Matt Smith turns evil because we need something for the third act, and it's not good. It's badly, to the extent that it's not set up beyond the kid defends himself once.
It's sudden and unsubstantiated, and it's not a very deep dive either. He just immediately turns a switch on and is completely the root of all evil. Yeah. Versus somebody who's dealing with harboring psychological issues from bullying, etc., over a period of time. And again, with the act out process, does he act out against those who bullied him? No. He's going to take out random people as a whole when he does become a pseudo vampire, and including, the one person who probably showed him more kindness than anybody in Morbius's father. The sense behind it is extremely lacking. And we've always said the bad guy doesn't necessarily have to be right in what they're doing or make sense in what they're doing, as long as you believe they believe in what they're doing. There's none of that here.
And the real problem with that, Matt Smith's character cycles through about 3 different iterations of why he's doing this. He starts with, look, the first time, okay, you can't control yourself, you know that, Michael. You ran through a boat full of people. I killed a nurse, okay? Sorry, call it even. Then he goes to, well, we're the evolved form of humanity. These people are now sheep, okay? Well, you can kind of make that work, I suppose, if you want to, but then it goes to, no, I have been put upon by God, the universe, and everyone, so now I will wreak vengeance. Well, okay, but this is slightly in conflict with your people don't matter anymore. Do you care this much about what they did to you in your past life? Then it turns into, but Michael, I really just want you to realize that I'm right so we can still be friends because you're the only person. Make up your mind. You have utterly ruined any chance this character had at being anything approximating memorable, to say nothing. And I don't know if this was Matt Smith's choice or the director's or whoever. I'm blaming both of you at this point.
I think that's fair.
The physical acting that Matt Smith does is just not good. At a bare minimum, when Jared Leto is walking around on the sticks, he sells it. Matt Smith does not. Once Matt Smith gains his body back and he's dancing around and I don't know why he's dancing like that. It doesn't make sense. I don't know why we have an entire scene where he decides to put on a suit and go to a crappy bar, and then we have to spend time there.
Spider-Man 3.
I also I honestly think that there's just something in Hollywood where men dancing weird is funny, and it's at this point it's just the same group of incestuous writers that all think the same shit's funny, and that's why half of these movies turn out the way that they do, and so damn similar.
You're probably not wrong there.
Yeah.
Okay. You talked a little bit about the love interest and the utter lack of chemistry. I don't mean this as an insult to any party member. I'm going to say this, though. Jared Leto had better chemistry with Matthew McConaughey. Again, not an insult to any of them or that movie. It's a great movie. Both of them did a great job acting. Those two had more chemistry, and especially when you know that both of those gentlemen, their orientation in real life, they did a better job selling that than selling Morbius and Martine being attracted to each other. Last thing, and this relates to blood. I've talked about this. I laughed at the blue blood before because, of course, I did. It's stupid. I don't know why they decided to do that. I really don't. I mean, I could make a couple of really bad guesses, but there's no logic behind it whatsoever.
Sepia tones, man. Their answer to sepia tones. Blue and moonlight highlighting lighting. Terrible.
Yeah, it's not good. But the scenes of Morbius feeding on the occasions that he does are... How was this phrased? I'm going to steal this line. We've all played enough video games to know that whenever you drink a potion, you get the same animation. I don't know why every time he sucked one of those things down, it was the exact same motion every single time. I mean, I know why. It's because of the physical limitations of the props he's working with. But you've rendered the entire process here. Like, you don't even really show him with blood on his face after he drinks on the couple of occasions that he does.
Well,
somehow
you're talking about process. There's clearly no process.
That's true. Somehow, that god-awful variation of Morbius from the 90s Spider-Man cartoon, who didn't bite anyone because he couldn't, he had suction cups on the palms of his hands, and he couldn't talk about blood because 90s Saturday morning cartoon, so he's whining about plasma. He donated a lot of plasma. It's mostly water. That got more scares because he left behind these horrible-looking suction marks, holes on people's faces, than your giant toothy vampire did in this movie, when you have failed to equal a sense of revulsion and horror that a Saturday morning cartoon from the mid-90s was able to achieve. You have failed utterly.
Okay.
I can't top it. He's dead on about every little bit of that.
All right. I don't have anything else to add. I kind of the pause kind of took the momentum out of it for me, but I just wanted to say that I got on Alexis about the Eternals when she talked about, oh, this is boring. And I'm like, no. Thoughtful isn't boring. But
your assignment of thoughtful to Eternals is generous at best.
Not when you compare it to this, it ain't.
But that's the thing.
Fair.
This one just moves so darn slowly. And I don't want to repeat everything you guys have already said, I'm sure, but when there's flat acting, a plot that makes little to no sense, and what there is so darn thin you can see through it, and things are moving slowly, and the action sequences are not stylized in any way or unreadable, it was just one giant mess after another. And I can see why this would easily entertain children. You talked about like the cartoon. A lot of the cartoons we grew up watching were better written than this. Like, and
literally with the same characters.
And a lot of times,
Heck, I'd take the Gummy Bears cartoon over this if we're just talking about writing.
The
dashing and daring, courageous and caring,
the hypothesis is
friendly with stories to share.
There we go.
All through the forest, they sing out in chorus, marching along as their song fills the air. Gummy bears bouncing here and there and everywhere. High adventure that's beyond compare. They are the Gummy Bears.
Hey, Pat, where can you find the
Magic
Gummy Bears
and
theme?
mystery?
Hey, Pat, where can you find the Gummy
history,
Bears
along
theme?
with the secrets of gummy berry juice?
Hey, Pat, where can you find the Gummy Bears theme?
You know what's crazy is you can find it along with several thousand others of selections of your musical preference on Amazon Music.
That's right, and we happen to be giving away a free 30-day trial of the Amazon Music Unlimited service. You can click the link in the description of this podcast at getamazonmusic.com/W2M Network. Again, that's getamazonmusic.com/W2M Network. You can sign up for the free 30 days. You can stream all of the TV show themes that are on Amazon Music to your heart's content.
Got a lot of them.
They certainly do, Ollie. And then when you're done with that, at the end of the 30 days, please let me finish my plug. And then when you're done with that, and at the end of the 30 days, you can keep it for a nominal fee. It's competitive with Spotify and Apple Music, or you can cancel it. No fuss, no muss. Yes, Robert.
Last thing to just because I have to talk about this very briefly. My last critique about this film.
Yeah.
To whoever scored this, I sincerely hope Hans Zimmer sues your ass. There are giant sections of this, I kid you not, that are just plagiarized from his score for Batman Begins.
Okay. And with that, here comes the money.
We're in the money. We're in the money.
All righty.
Not in the money. This movie.
All right.
Don't give me that it won the weekend crap. Don't give me that. I know it did, but don't give me that crap.
All right. Well, on a budget of, let's go on the high end here and say 83 million. It is currently made, according to the Wikipedia, on this day in our Lord, April 5th, 2022, of $86 million. So it's made its budget. It is not yet profitable. We'll see what happens over the course of the next couple of weeks.
I imagine it's going to crater because a $40 million opening is not great.
It was the number one movie of the weekend that was April 1st through the 3rd. The Lost City with Sandra Bullock. Even though I think it went up 30 theaters, it looks like. Dropped from 1 to 2 and had a 51.7% drop. The Batman dropped from 2 to 3, had a 46.3% drop. Yes.
For the record. Yeah. I called it.
It's not out of theaters just yet.
I didn't say that. Look, all I said was I don't think it has the legs everyone thought it did. That's all I said.
Listen, we on the show that we do Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, or the Fantastic Beasts 3 rather, is the day that the Batman will be on HBO Max. Whatever the number is, if it's less than $1 billion, I will give you the applause button. If it's not, it's fine.
I mean, come on, Robert. It's not like you're betting on something like Eternals.
I hate all of you. Anyway,
I should have bet on that too. Look, for the record, for anyone who is listening to this and didn't listen to our review of the Batman, the only thing I said about that was I'm not sold on $1 billion, especially after I saw the 3-hour movie. I just don't think it has the rewatch value that people think it does. It got unseated by the Lost City.
Yeah,
you got unseated by a Channing Tatum, Sandra Bullock rom-com wannabe romancing the stone.
Yeah. Wait, that's not the one with the dog, is it?
No,
that's a different Channing Tatum movie.
Yeah, that came out. A couple weeks before. It came out the same weekend as Uncharted. I know that because I took my kids to see Uncharted and Dog in the same day. Yeah, so the Batman doesn't have quite the staying power that we thought it did, and we've discussed it at length. I don't need to go into it again.
You.
Uncharted. I can't wait to get this review done. Uncharted maintained its spot at number 4. Jujutsu Kaisen, number 5. Triple R, whatever that is, dropped from 3 to 6. Spider-Man No Way Home went up a spot. It actually traded its spot with Dog, starring Channing Tatum. Everything Everywhere All at Once had its wide release finally. So it went up 115.1% in theaters.
Nice.
With a 28-point change. It jumped from 13 to 9. Robert and I will be reviewing it and after Yang in about a month or so when both are on PVOD. Speaking of things I'm reviewing when they're PVOD, X dropped from 6 to 10. Sing 2 still in theaters for some odd reason to drop from 9 to 11.
Still doing fairly well. Why wouldn't it still be there?
The Contractor debuted from STX Entertainment, soon to be bought by Amazon, soon to be bought by Pornhub. Debuted number 12.
We all know that last purchase is going the other way. Amazon is the one that's going to buy the hub.
Probably. Infinite Storm dropped from 10 to 13. Death on the Nile 11 to 14. I saw Death on the Nile, by the way. That is a sleepy movie. Like for what's supposed to be like a boilerplate mystery. I mean, it might be because I saw it late at night, but by the end of that one, I was like, please end this movie already.
You know what kills me about that movie?
What?
It looks cheap.
Yeah, it wasn't great. Like it was fine for it was.
The use of green screen is painful.
It was one of those things where I didn't think that hard about it because I was just sitting there. I saw it with a friend. It was like a late night. We were like, "What do you want to do? Like, let's go see a movie. What's playing around the time that we were going to be at the theater?" And like between the late night and just the general disinterest, like I went in thinking, "Oh, I should really enjoy this. I love a good murder mystery." And I didn't see Murder on the Orient Express, but apparently it did well enough to generate a sequel. And I'm watching this, and we're like halfway through the movie, and they haven't murdered the victim yet. Like, what is happening here? 10 minutes, people. Let's go. What are we waiting for?
Because you saved the inciting incident for, the 90-minute mark.
Yeah, that's when you feel like fresh. That's when you roll the credits.
Yeah.
The Outfit dropped from 12 to 15. You Won't Be Alone debuted at 16. Uma dropped from 14 to 17. Waterman debuted at 18. Robert Winfree rose 1 point from 20 to 19. Robert, you know what the name of that movie is, right? That I just called Robert Winfree.
The worst person in the world.
That's right, baby. Also, do we know what we say? Pat, have you heard Robert's new catchphrase?
No, I haven't.
Okay, well, this one came from TikTok. Should I share it with the world again, Robert?
Sure, go for it.
Okay, Robert's new catchphrase is "This man gets no bitches."
Yep.
Pat's whole screen froze. Pat,
No, that was just me being in frozen shock for a second.
Somebody saw Robert's TikTok on Cheaper by the Dozen.
Okay, your cut up of my rant. Let's be clear. I do not have a TikTok account.
Yes, your rant that I put on my TikTok, and I don't get a lot of comments on my TikToks, but boy, did this guy comment, and he was like, "This man clearly gets no bitches," and I couldn't wait to share that with Robert because I thought, it was funny.
Not wrong.
Licorice Pizza dropped from 16 to 20. Sorry, so that was the weekend. Let's see where we are worldwide.
I thought The Weeknd was a Canadian recording artist.
Everybody's working for the weekend.
That's Loverboy, also Canadian.
Batman sitting at $712 million worldwide, the number one movie of 2022 currently.
Everyone is desperately trying to pretend that that's going to beat the box office take of Suicide Squad, and I don't think it's going to.
What was Suicide Squad worldwide at the end of the day?
The first one, 740, 770.
That's close.
Not impossible. I just don't think.
Yeah, well, I mean, also April is where things are really going to start to pick up here, and we'll talk about that in a second. But I mean, between 712 and 750, there's not that big of a difference, so we'll see what happens. Watergate Bridge currently at 626 million. Uncharted petering out at 373 million. Too Cool to Kill, 217 million. Nice View, I don't know what these are. 211 million. Scream from January, sitting at a comfortable 140 million, which has been greenlit for a Scream 6. Because oh boy. Death on the Nile at 136 million, but who cares? It's already on Hulu, and it's a 20th Century Fox movie. Triple R is at 97, and Morbius sitting at number 9 at 86, beating out Jackass Forever, which is currently at number 10. Rounding out the top 20 are Dog, The Lost City, Marry Me, Moonfall, BTS Permission to Dance on Stage, Soul Live Viewing, The Bad Guys, which isn't out in America just yet. The 355, Robert, sitting at a pretty 27 million. Oh boy.
5 more weeks. 5 more weeks before that's out of the top 20 would be my guess.
Sonic the Hedgehog, which comes out this week, will probably be the number one movie of the weekend. Currently available worldwide, has made 26 million. The Kashmir Files, 24. And then at number 20 is the Confidence Man JP episode of The Hero. So that is where we are with the box office.
God, that was terrible to sit through.
At least he didn't go all the way down to Turning Red, which was sitting at number 29.
Good. Suck off communist propaganda.
So this weekend, we've got Ambulance. The two big wide releases that are in any way competitive are Sonic the Hedgehog and Ambulance. Sonic the Hedgehog will end up winning the weekend.
Oh, yeah.
April 15th, the big one is Fantastic Beasts. But if you're not into Harry Potter, well, screw you, because there's nothing else that's in wide release that weekend. The 22nd is The Bad Guys, which is the new animated film, I believe, from DreamWorks.
Sure.
And The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent and The Northman. Of all of those, the one we're doing is The Northman, which kind of annoyed Ronnie because he was like, hey, we should review The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent. And I'm like, I don't have another day to spare, sir.
Also, The Northman sounds like the only one that's not fucking stupid.
Yeah, Gavin actually pitched that one. He was like, hey, can we review The Northman? And he asked me in January, so it's still time for me to adjust my schedule.
I don't know what any of those other things are. If they're animated, they can go shit. But The Northman actually looks cool based on the trailers.
The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent is Nicolas Cage playing Nicolas Cage.
Oh, wait. Yeah, okay. If that's the title of that, then that's awesome, too.
Yeah, that one.
Like that one or The Northman. Like I was 50-50 on those. Could have easily gone for either. Doing something a bit more serious after the string of silliness that we're going to be doing for the next little bit. And Alexander Skarsgård is a beast of a man when he wants to be. Like,
yeah, I'm looking forward to it. April 29th. There's not a whole lot here. The wide releases are Memory with Liam Neeson, which is an open road film, so I'm sure no one will see it. That's about it. Everything else is in limited release. And then we are finally up to Doctor Strange, which will, I'm sure, make $1 billion. So
that is out loud.
All right, it is time, folks. Yay, my browser is finally working. I can actually share it to the screen. You know, like the last two shows where I couldn't get Rotten Tomatoes to load. So here we go with the critical review.
Are you ready? No! I said, are you ready?
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
All right, for you listeners of Damn You Hollywood, Grammarly is offering a free download of the Grammarly software, which is sponsoring this segment. Grammarly's AI-powered products help people communicate more effectively. Grammarly helps you write mistake-free on Gmail, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and nearly anywhere else you write on the web. Grammarly corrects hundreds of grammar, punctuation, spelling mistakes while also catching contextual errors, improving your vocabulary, and suggesting style improvements. You download Grammarly today. Go to getgrammarly.com/W2M Network. Again, it's getgrammarly.com/W2M Network to download Grammarly for free.
Yeah, dear writers of this movie, we're trying to help you.
So, I believe
Also, the 70% of the audience can just take a flying leap, man.
I feel like they got this backwards, and that's the 70% is the critics score, and the 16% is the audience score.
No, I swear to God, if you were following this on, I know you don't have a Twitter, but like the early buzz coming from the critics who went to the screenings before this went in theaters, like the critics hated it. I'm actually surprised the audience score is that high because like I know I said like my kids liked it, but God, they can't be. There can't be that many people out there that have the collective brain power of an 8-year-old or an 11-year-old, are there? I mean,
you really want to look at the last like 3 to 4 United States elections and revisit that particular question mark?
I mean, fair point, but boy, is that frightening.
Yeah, this is probably like the last election where there's a lot of bots and stuff that were put in to just inflate a number.
The critical consensus reads, cursed with uninspired effects, rote performances, and a borderline nonsensical story. This dreary mess is a vain attempt to make Morbius happen.
And we're getting this, and guess how they spelled vain?
Yeah.
Were they trying to make it a pun?
Yeah, of course.
Clever.
What kills me about that is I don't know if Morbius itself was greenlit, but like they are all in on this Sinister Six movie. Which was
what? Here's all I want out of this.
Mm-hmm.
I want them to go ahead and make their stupid movie. And I want it to fail. Because it will.
All right.
And then I want there to be no reckoning, no consequences, no nothing for all the people involved who made this abomination possible. And for some to just go, you know what? Maybe we just need to try again.
I want to keep inflating that little punk until he thinks he's invincible. And then you know what he's going to learn? Pain in every part of his body and fear in every part of his mind. We're going to be back, my man. Bigger and badder than ever.
Susan Granger of SSG Syndicate says, ghoulish Gotham gloom.
Seriously, you mean gothic, right? I'm desperately hoping you misread that.
I'm really hoping you didn't.
Ghoulish Gothic gloom. Sorry.
Okay, it's not gothic. But if it was actually Gotham, I was about to have an aneurysm.
Mel Valentine of That Shelf.
Oh, him.
That shelf.
As opposed to the other shelf.
I need to revisit the how do you get on Rotten Tomatoes thing because every week something new shows up here and I'm like, no, there's no possible way enough people are going to that thing for this to be on here. An often bored-looking Leto isn't helped by a formulaic, generic, cliche-ridden screenplay credited to Matt Sazama and Burk Sharpless. Anonymous, borderline, competent direction comes thanks to Swedish-born Daniel Espinosa, who directed, I guess, Life and Safe House.
That explains so much.
Yeah.
He directed The Lighthouse?
No. Life and Safe House.
Oh, no.
No. Ryan Eggers, I believe it was Ryan Eggers who directed The Lighthouse, and he's directing The Northman.
Okay, well, that guy rocks, so.
Also directed The Witch.
Preston Barda of Denton Record Chronicle. Jared Leto trades in his clown shoes for fangs. And of course, it's as silly and bad as you thought. However, it's never not entertaining, and Matt Smith understood the assignment.
No, he really didn't.
No one understood the assignment. And how dare you say it's never not boring? First of all, again, Grammarly, we're trying to help you people. That's terribly phrased. Second, giant stretches of this are boring as sin. The whole first third.
Yeah. This was interminable. Let's see here. Okay. Eddie Harrison of FilmAuthority.com. Despite aspirations for Cronenbergian, Robert Winfree, don't you understand? David Cronenberg, The Fly. Despite aspirations to The Fly, his ear fell off and he ate it and said, "Oh my!" Cronenbergian body horror.
I don't think this guy's ever seen a Cronenberg movie, first of all.
I don't think he
There's
has either.
nothing remotely David Cronenberg about any of
Not
this.
Not even close. Like, even just like the morphing that, I mean...
Even if you go back and watch Cronenberg's early stuff before he had a budget, like, man, like, oh, God.
Yes.
No.
So despite aspirations to Cronenbergian body horror, Morbius's bloody action amounts to a lengthy thin off between Leto and Smith.
You're not wrong about the thin off, apart from the fact that Matt Smith is clearly in shape the entire time, and they just desperately try to downplay it. But no, there's not an ounce of body horror in this, you idiot.
Lynn Venhouse of Webster Kirkwood Times. Oh, these places aren't even trying anymore. More horror than Hero. Deep. Morbius is as dark and brooding as the Batman.
No.
But with less style and substance. Yet the themes and origin story are intriguing and a different product.
No, there are no themes. There are no themes here. None. No themes.
And a different product than the routine Marvel comic book turn movies.
No, this is every bit as cliche, paint by numbers, MCU formula as you can get, just without the MCU banner to attach to make all the idiots think it's better than it is.
Did we get something remotely coherent yet or no?
No. Patrick McDonald of WGBR FM 93.7 Monroe, Wisconsin. Geez, everybody, calm down. There is an essential question about the bodily handicaps in the story, which give it some heft. Oi! What is one willing to give away to get cured of a disease that essentially is a living death?
I don't know, but I know what I'd be willing to give away to get rid of Monroe, Wisconsin.
Disgust for drinking blood, Robert Winfree? Cool.
What blood?
You, sir, are an idiot. One, what blood? There's no blood to be found in this movie.
There was more blood in the adaptation of Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret.
Hey, that's actually coming to theaters this year.
Yeah, it's about a girl getting her period for the first time.
Yes, that'll be in theaters later this year. I have not put it on the schedule yet, but don't tempt me. Nate Adams of The Only Critic sucks the fun out of everything. Ugh. I don't wish death on people, but if a car accidentally hits you in the cosmic scheme of things, I mean, just saying.
Someone who knows this gentleman, please, throw an empty beer can at his head. Or a full one if you're feeling spicy.
Yeah. Christopher Lloyd of The Film Yap. Hardly the best in the superhero game, but a decently entertaining and moody entry that's hands down, Pat Mullin, hands down better than the lackluster Venom series.
It's not.
Yeah, something tells me Doc Brown's been sniffing the plutonium a little bit.
Listen,
either that or he's the Reverend Jim version of Christopher Lloyd.
I'd go with that. He got distracted by the guy with the googly eyes in the theater.
Oh, no, boss. We can't do that.
Oh, you again.
Bilge Iberi.
Slow down. All right. What does a yellow light mean? Slow down.
What does...
I love that bit.
So good.
Bill Jabiri, which if you do, you'll clean it up. New York Magazine, Vulture, top critic. Morbius has no reason to exist as an actual movie, but maybe that's why it worked for me.
Look, I can fully accept that any pretentious jackass writing for New York Magazine might have just gone completely round the bend as far as this kind of quasi-entertainment nihilism that's going around, and formed an Ouroboros where your head is so far up your own ass, you can eat your lunch twice. But seriously, no.
We'll do 2 more of these, and then we'll...
I just let one rip, and it had more emphasis on serious content than that did.
Elias Savada of Film International, a nonsensical Frankensteinian Dracula Jekyll and Hyde mashup from Marvel. First of all, you fucking fucktard, it's Sony, not Marvel. Marvel is its own studio, dipshit, and the comic book company didn't make the movie, so it doesn't even work there either. Jesus Christ, you write film reviews for a fucking living, and you don't know what studio's doing what. Eat a tailpipe.
Also, you pick Frankensteinian, Draculinian, Jekyll and Hyde-ish, fucking wolf mannerism, whatever. Pick one. Pick one, jerk off.
Swamp Thingy-ish.
Surprised you didn't work in a reference to the Invisible Man.
Invisible Man.
I'm hoping that fucking idiot turns into him.
Hang on. I'm 2 more because now I got to read this one. Caroline Slade of Fox 10 Phoenix, top critic. Alas, Morbius is too bound to comic book movie convention to become the overt gay vampire superhero melodrama it probably should have been. Pat, you want to take that one?
No, I don't.
Okay.
Because you want to stay on the air.
Yeah, I'm sure I'll hear about it in the chat.
We don't need to get demonetized.
Fuck it. Here we go.
Oh boy, let me hang on. Hang on. Wait a minute now. Hang on. Where are you?
He's desperately writing down the time code for the TikTok. That's you.
Damn it.
Oh wait, there we go.
He's trying to go full screen on you.
Oh no, don't do that.
Yeah, here we
go.
go.
The views expressed in this video are those of my own. They do not express the views of the Radulich and Broadcasting Network, W2Mnet, Mark Radulich, Robert Winfree, or any number of associated parties. They are my views and my views alone. What the fuck are you talking about with the fucking gay vampire movie? Are you fucking stuck in Anne Rice in 1994? They bite and they drink. What's gay about this, to be honest? Like, because it's his brother. He has a female love interest, and granted, she's wooden. But I don't know if you've ever been a male and single. You date a lot of wooden chicks because they put out, and that's the bottom line. They can be really good looking and have no substance underneath it, and that's the attraction. That's how that works. We're not always looking for something deeper. We're actually a lot of the time trying to be as superficial as possible. So, point 1. Point 2, I'll actually give you credence in the fact that it falls into stupid superhero movie tropes. I'll agree with that. And that, again, we talked about the stupid, brother turning on brother and patricide and all this nonsense and crap that's been overdone time and time again in these movies. Back to the gay stuff. Why do we need an overtly gay vampire drama? We've had that already. It's called Twilight, where 2 girls one's a vampire, one's not. They fall in love. They twinkle in the sun. The poor Native American werewolf boy gets left in the dust with his abs. It happens. Where is this fucking coming from? But then again,
there were 2 males in the movie. They have to be gay.
Man can't possibly.
Let me be Christian Slater in an interview with the vampire then to try to summarize this. I don't understand. So what you're telling me is you're a vampire? You drink people's blood for sustenance? I don't understand what you're telling me here. Why do they have to be gay? Because they drink blood? That seems a little pejorative towards the gay community, as if they all suck stuff when that doesn't happen. You got some pitchers, you got some catchers. I don't understand what you're telling me. Is it because she has a blood-borne illness and you're trying to paint all gay people as having some type of blood-borne immunodeficiency? Because that's not accurate either. That's offensive, and I'm offended by it.
Thank you, Christian. All right, that was fun.
For the record, just to this person,
yes,
you're part of the problem.
Yeah.
Let me be very, very clear about the following sentiment. If you haven't looked at the psychiatric literature lately about just the deep problem welling up with men in this country, and this is not a feminist rant, men don't form good, deep bonds with each other. Don't do this. I'm not going for long. Why are you doing this to me, Mark? I mean this in all sincerity. If you haven't looked at this and the inability or the downward trend of male friendships, it's a real thing and it's a real problem because human beings, as a general rule, are communal creatures, and men in particular do kind of need that, and we suck at doing it. We don't do a good job of learning it. We don't do a good job of teaching it. And for every other movie reviewer, or I'm gonna go purge myself after this for using this word, influencer.
I'm still offended that this person thought that the vampires needed to be gay because they had bloodborne illnesses that wreaked havoc on their immune systems, because that's
They
not
thought
okay.
they needed to be gay because there was two of them and they were fighting each other. So look,
I
just like
think
Wonder Woman and Kristen Wiig had to be gay, so too do Matt Smith and Jared Leto.
I don't know about that, but this sounds pretty pejorative based on a bloodborne immunodeficiency and doing that. So I apologize to any of our, friends in the LGBTQ community for that view, because it's silly, pejorative, outdated, and quite frankly offensive.
And again, in all seriousness, it's okay for men to just be friends, to have meaningful relationships with each other that don't have. Why are you trying to foist your fetishization of
Guys
male?
can't just be friends; they have to love each other.
Yeah, and yeah. This is part of the reason why so many men are afraid to express their these kind of bonds, because there's someone who looks over there and does the who's that stupid actor comedian, does the Ken Jeong thing. It goes gay. Like, no, you're actively contributing in a meaningful way to the declining mental health of the totality of 50% of the human population. Good job, moron.
And our last review here.
Did you find Kevin Carr?
No, but this one's even worse.
All right.
I'm going to leave him alone for the night because I want to do this one for you, Robert, because I
don't even tag me in this. This is just, we're piling on to horse shit after horse shit after horse shit.
I just want to tell you, Robert, that you are my friend and I do love you, and that is why I'm giving you this gift.
Gay.
Thank you. Chris Knight of National Post. Robert Winfree, don't you understand? It's been far too long since I, Chris Knight of the National Post, have seen a superhero movie whose special effects were both jaw-dropping and seemingly effortless.
That's not complimentary in the right context.
Yeah.
So your jaw can drop at how bad something is, and something can seem effortless because it looks like you didn't try.
Yeah, Pat's entirely correct there. Here's the other thing about this, about your take on this, sir. It's not my fault you haven't seen a comic book movie since Spawn. But you've missed a lot since then.
All right, folks. Oh, Jesus Christ. Stop taking reffing pauses. I keep thinking you're done.
Okay, sorry. Last thing on this. I appreciate that Sony was trying to cash in on the nostalgia wave that's going on. But making this movie in the style of a mid-2000s comic book movie, i.e. Spawn, The Fantastic Four, Blade, not even Blade. Blade actually was kind of awesome. But Mark, you were around. Pat, you were around. We all suffered through these movies. Trying to cash in on that nostalgia was certainly a choice you made.
All right. Folks, that does it for Damn You Hollywood. Sorry I had to cut out there. I've got some personal stuff I had to deal with real quick.
And nobody cares.
Everything's
Mark,
fine. Thanks.
We're glad everything's fine, and you know that you can trust me and Pat to steer the ship smoothly in your absence. We did not badmouth you one iota. You just now have to go back and actually listen to the show to find out if I'm lying to you or not.
I'll listen to it later while I'm sleeping. So anyway, that is our review of Damn You Hollywood. Morbius. Next week we'll have two Damn You Hollywoods, one with Ronnie Adams and one with myself and Robert Winfree and Alexis. We'll be doing Sonic the Hedgehog 2 in our usual Tuesday spot, and the day before will be myself and Ronnie doing Ambulance, because I wanted to spare Robert Winfree the pain of having to review a Michael Bay movie.
I appreciate that.
But you wouldn't spare him the pain of Sonic the Hedgehog 2.
No. I am actually willing for that. Like, I'm happy to talk to. Did you see the Sonic movie? Idle Curiosity?
No.
It's not bad.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. Anyway,
I know this is like the lowest hurdle you can possibly clear, but it is one of the best video game adaptations.
So Uwe Boll didn't direct it?
No Uwe Boll, who, by the way, you pathetic hack of a writer. My favorite thing Uwe Boll ever did, because this just showed how pathetic he is. He got mad at people criticizing his movies, and he actually has something of amateur boxing background. So he said to all these critics who said mean things about his terrible movies, well, why don't you come fight me? Then hand selected the fattest, saddest ones that he could just bludgeon.
Kevin Carr?
I don't know if Kevin Carr was there, but again, it is beyond pathetic.
All right, you know what? I don't. At least he's willing to fight somebody. So you know what, you bull? I'm gonna buy one of your movies in case it gets royalties to you or whatever, because I respect the fact that you were willing to hit somebody.
Might I suggest Blood Rain for the very obvious reasons?
On April 19th, we will be reviewing Fantastic Beasts: The Sequels of Dumbledore, and we will be joined by Jason and his wife. Jason got me like late last year, early this year, and he's like, "Here's every movie I'm reviewing with you in the year of our Lord 2022," and like handed me this mile-long list. And he was like, "Oh, and a few of these I want my wife on," and I'm like, "Okay, big time, sure." So yeah, so for people who might contact me a week or so before the movie, just know Jason already took your spot.
Was there really a demand for Fantastic Beasts?
There might have been. We have one or two Harry Potter fans in the group, so who are now not going to be able to do that show. Anyway, so the Teasleys and I and Robert will be reviewing Fantastic Beasts: Sequels of Dumbledore on the 19th. And
I've read some early reviews of that. Best thing about it, to the shock of no one, Mads Mikkelsen, because he's freaking awesome. No
doubt. And then The Northman with myself and Robert and Gavin Napier on April 26th. So that's all the Damn You Hollywoods. Check out Pat in the History of Boxing podcast, which will come back in the month of May. In the meantime, we have wrapped up our Mania of WrestleMania podcast. That is now in the archive. So you can hear Pat. Pat was on almost all of them. He only missed the Attitude Era and 18 and 19, where I was joined by Stuart and Neil from Movies That Don't Suck and Some That Do. Pat, just real quick, like 10 words or less, how do you feel about the Mania of WrestleMania podcast?
Pimps up, hoes down, West Side.
West Side. Anyway, so check that out. And Pat will actually be with me again. We're going to be getting our Hillary Duff on. We'll be reviewing How I Met Your Father.
Why did you make that so terrible?
Me and Pat are going to get right on top of Hillary Duff and her How I Met Your Father show. Season 1 currently on Hulu, and that'll be Thursday, April 28th. Are you excited for
season 2?
Are you excited to get on top of Hillary Duff and her show?
Boy, am I ever.
Oh, no doubt. No doubt about it. All right. Robert, go ahead and do your plugs and don't do stuff I've already said.
Well, I would like to apologize for the male gaze that is so prevalent in this. Couldn't do it with a straight face. I had a line. I tried to get through the whole thing. Couldn't do it. All right. If you're interested in mixed martial arts, I host the 411 Ground and Pound MMA podcast. Records late Sunday evening, goes live usually late Sunday, early Monday, depending on where you are in the world. This week, a preview of UFC 273. Great card. 3 great fights at the top. Alexander Volkanovski and the Korean Zombie. Volkanovski is going to kill a zombie. The rematch between Aljamain Sterling and Petr Yan. Hopefully
Let's write that wrong.
Hopefully Yan doesn't do something stupid and get himself disqualified again. And the latest unstoppable freight train, Khamzat Chimaev fights Gilbert Burns. And it's a pretty big test for Chimaev, but he has, I believe, the most ridiculous stat line I've ever seen in the UFC. His at the moment, his ratio of significant strikes given to absorbed is 112-1. He's been hit a grand total of twice in his entire UFC career. So how he does against Burns, we'll have to wait and see. But if you want a full preview of that event, as well as, and there wasn't even any news, I'm not even going to say that, but I do that show every week. I cover mixed martial arts in the MMA zone of 411mania.com, UFC 273 this Saturday. So stop by, say hello if you're so inclined. I appreciate it. I also cover professional wrestling a few times a week. Last week, I covered NXT's Stand and Deliver. It's that. This is my review of that show. It was all downhill from the first match.
I do, however, personally love your MLW reviews.
Oh, thank you. I cover AEW's Dark Elevation on Monday.
The only thing I have to say about that NXT show, poor Grayson Waller's elbow.
Yeah, I'm waiting for the confirmation about just how many bones he broke. His right arm was messed up.
Yeah, it was.
Maybe don't do a flying elbow drop off of one giant ladder onto a couple of bridge giant ladders for no reason. Just throwing it out.
Idea.
Just throwing it out there.
Probably not necessary.
So yeah, again, my full review of that particular event, I gave it a slightly generous 7.5 out of 10. So again, I cover AEW's Dark Elevation on Mondays, which is basically not AEW, which is basically AEW's version of Saturday Night Heat. It's not the worst thing in the world. I cover MLW stuff on Thursdays, whatever they happen to be putting out. There's another Fusion this week, and I think the Azteca title comes back the week after that. Might reverse those, though. I can't remember off the top of my head, but whatever they put out, I will be covering. And WWE SmackDown on Friday. So we're going to have to wait and see how bad the injury to Roman Reigns is, and then he will give us an update on the future of the Undisputed title.
All right, folks, please like and subscribe. We can't live stream on YouTube until July 1st, but all of our videos go up there.
Whose fault is that, Mark?
My kids. Stupid kids wanting to spend time with their father. Anyway, so
you just needed the headphones on, man. That's all you needed to do. It was the sound more than the video that got you.
Yeah. So anyway, long story short, we all of our videos upload to YouTube, just same as before. We just can't live stream like we used to. The live streams will still be happening. I may or may not do the UFC this weekend, depending on how a couple of other things play out. I haven't decided yet. It's still tentatively on the schedule, but there may be a last-second cancellation. But we're definitely doing Spence Ugas, Tyson Fury, Jillian White.
Mark, want to live stream Gennady Golovkin? Oh, wait.
I have to work, or I would. I would. I saw the time for that. I'm like, ooh, maybe I can get Robert Winfree to like stay up all night and do that one with me. And I'm like, no, I have to work that morning.
Main card starts around 5 a.m. Eastern, I believe. The main event.
There's no, I can't do it. I have to be at work by 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So they'll probably be in the ring when I have to be at work.
They'll be done with the national anthems about then.
Sure.
Is that a thing they don't do in Japan? I can't remember.
In any case, we are definitely doing Spence Ugas, Dillian White, Tyson Fury, and Oscar Valdez versus Shakur Stevenson, and Canelo versus Dimitri Bivol. Those are definitely going to happen. The only one that's iffy is the UFC. However, they'll be streamed to Facebook and Twitter and Twitch. There will be no live stream to YouTube until July 1st when our copyright strike finally goes away. Yay, YouTube, and yay, WWE. Please like and subscribe on all your podcatchers. We are on Stitcher, Spotify, Apple Music. So if you would like to get all the shows, mine, Eric's, Sean's, all of us that make up the W2M network, please like and subscribe to our feed wherever you find it. With that said, thank you, Pat. Thank you, Robert. Be well, be safe, and behave.